Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today I'm answering a Dear Ruth Theresa question, but I'm answering this in a little bit different way than I normally do because it's something like really close to home for me. So I really wanted to explain all of this and get you some deeper insight into her question. So let's talk about this. I had a client that reached out to me and we were doing a reading and talking about a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things that she's been struggling with is dealing with like a super toxic family member. And she is kind of going back and forth and back and forth. And so we were talking about some solutions and some different things. And I told her, I said, I know there's so many people out here like in the world just dealing with the same thing and kind of dealing with like toxic family members as well, and kind of like, should I cut all the ties with them or should I kind of just keep them at a distance? All of those things, and kind of like, how do I do this? How do I work through this? And so I wanted to go through some kind of like some amazing answers for you and kind of get you some deeper insight. I will tell you first off, it is not easy, and it is quite like scary would be a good word, but I almost would say like terrifying at the same time to cut ties with a family member that has been really toxic to you, because it's almost, that's what you've known the whole time that you've known this person. They're probably been like this. So it's kind of like, and it's different if that toxic person is like your spouse, your husband or wife, or your boyfriend or girlfriend. That can be different, especially if y'all have kids together. You have to make that decision. I'm just talking about some things that maybe some energy that you need to think about, or kind of like ways to kind of like really think about, is this the best relationship for you to be in? This can also be different if this is your brother or sister and you only see them once or twice a year, or this is kind of like some other energies. Maybe it could be your spouses or boyfriend or girlfriends, family members that are really toxic. Kind of like, how do I work through some of that? So these are kind of one of the ways to know that they're really toxic and that you may have to do something differently. So kind of like, how toxic are they, and what are some of my choices? That's kind of like the interesting part. So one of the things that I will tell you is kind of like really interesting is kind of one of the first things that you can do when you have a toxic family member is really try to set some healthy boundaries, and kind of like, this is my space, or I'm going to take a space, or I'm going to take a walk, or I'm going to take a step back, that sort of thing. And it's kind of really how to kind of give yourself a break during this time frame, because a lot of times when someone is toxic, kind of like their energy's really overwhelming us, and it can kind of put us in that like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. So a lot of times if you take a few moments to yourself, take a break and kind of really think about like, how do I want to work through this? How do I want to work through this energy? Can give you some special ones, and letting someone know like, you've kind of crossed the line, or you're about to cross the line with me. You're crossing my boundaries right now. So kind of giving you that kind of like, things are going to change from this point. Sometimes that alone can get them to back down a little bit. So it's kind of like, that could be a good way to do it. And then sometimes it's kind of like avoiding them. If they're going to this person's house for Easter Day, maybe you go the day before or the day after. If they're going to Christmas at grandma's house, maybe you go a few days after they've gone, or whatever else. So kind of like moving your schedule around to kind of avoid them or be around them as little as possible. Like, they're getting in the car to leave, bye, nice to see you, and then you roll up. So kind of setting some of those boundaries is a really good one, and kind of setting kind of like you're avoiding them no matter what. You're kind of like moving around their energy, or you completely do opposite, holidays or whatever else. That can give you some break and in with that family member, if possible, if you can do that. One of the things I will tell you that can be really overwhelming is someone who never admits that they're wrong. And I think a lot of people don't like to admit that they're wrong, so that's not the same thing. So it's kind of one of those, do you have like a close relationship with someone who never takes responsibility for what they've done, what they've caused, their actions, or anything else? Like, oh, you did that on yourself, and it's like, I did this because you did this. And so it's kind of one of those, are they never taking responsibility for anything that they've done? Someone who can never admit that they've done something wrong, said something wrong, hurt someone else's feelings, whatever it is, that can be really overwhelming. And kind of one of the things that's kind of overwhelming with this is like, you know that it's their fault, they caused something to happen, and it's kind of like frustrating, like, why aren't you not just saying like, I apologize for this, I apologize that I did this wrong, or I apologize for that, whatever it is. And they're not able to admit any of that. That can be someone that you may need to like keep a little more distance from if you possibly can. One of the other ones I will say is, I have a lot of family members that I had to cut ties with, a lot of my family members, that when I was around them, I didn't feel myself. And it was kind of one of those, like, I was so used to kind of getting ready to be around their energy that as I was getting to travel near my family or go near them or whatever else, it almost would like I was changing my energy and kind of getting more aggressive and more, and it was like, okay. And not until someone called me on it did I realize, like, hey, I didn't realize I was doing it. It's like, I had no idea. I didn't realize it. It was so accustomed to me. It's kind of like, oh, we're going to go out and walk in the rain. I need my rain boots. Kind of, oh, this is what you have to do. So that's kind of one of those like energies. Like, a lot of times we do it and we don't realize we're doing it. But if you don't feel yourself around them, because I never did. I like, if someone said something to me, it's like, I would just kind of like shut down mode a lot. Kind of like, I don't know how to deal with this. And so when in doubt, just be quiet. That was my philosophy. Like, I don't know how to deal with any of this. And I will tell you, it doesn't mean that everything has to be idyllically perfect, like this wonderful life. But it's one of those, if you feel like you are constantly biting your tongue and not saying what you feel, totally kind of like just pulling yourself back in energy of like, you're always, feeling like you're having to like protect you, protect your family members, protect your spouse, your kids, whatever it is, that's not a good sign. Kind of like, and you feel like you can't be yourself around them, or you have to have like your armor on constantly around this person. And sometimes it can be like almost like what they're going to call little things. Like, I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. It's like, kind of like they know your kids have asthma, but they're smoking a cigarette near them. And it's like, my children have asthma. This can affect their breathing. And they're like, I don't know why it's a big problem. My kids can deal with it or whatever else. And you're like, I've already explained to you, they have asthma. And they're always kind of like, not really like setting healthy boundaries or holding healthy boundaries with you. And if you do, it's always your fault. Well, your kids are, their immune system is horrible because of you or whatever else. Like, they're always blaming it on someone else. And kind of like, you're almost like feeling, like I said, you're having to put armor on to be protected around them. You may even feel like you have to protect yourself in that energy, kind of like constantly feeling that energy around them. But it's one of those always bringing out like the worst in you constantly. Like, you always feel like you can't be you, and it's kind of like feel really agitated, and that can be overwhelming as well. So kind of like, yes, let's get a change in there. One of the things is kind of like when you're around them, it can be like they're just draining your energy. Like, they've somehow like put a plug in you, and you're just like, when you're around them, you feel okay. But as they get ready to leave, or shortly after they leave, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. Oh, I'm so exhausted. And that's a good sign that this relationship is kind of like an energy vampire. Like, they're taking your good energy and they're leaving you with their old, tired, stale energy. And that can really overwhelm you. And I have a lot of people that deal with this a lot. And sometimes it can be coworkers as well. But I guarantee you, spending a good time with someone, like you're spending a couple of days with them, or like over Christmas, several days or whatever else, and you get home and like, or they leave, and you're just like, I'm exhausted. And you really didn't sleep well, and you had bad dreams or whatever else. Like, it's usually their energy kind of sucking off of you, especially if they're always talking about like, I feel great and everything else. And you're like, I just feel tired and exhausted, and I didn't feel tired and exhausted until I was around you. Kind of think about that. You can be also be kind of this kind of like always like waiting for the other foot to fall, or kind of like, what's going to happen next. And that can be kind of an indication of that toxic relationship. Kind of like, I feel overwhelmed all the time when I'm around this person. I always feel like I'm on the edge, or kind of like just on the edge of like having, like a nervous breakdown, or I'm always stressed, or I'm always anxious when I'm around them. That's a good indication that something's wrong with their energy, and they're probably kind of that energy vampire, that you're kind of like, they're sending the negative energy to you and they're taking your positive energy. This can be one of those like, I will tell you, someone who keeps making the same mistakes can be really overwhelming. Someone that you've maybe, you know what I'm saying, like, ask for your forgiveness for something, but they keep doing the same thing over again. Like, asking for forgiveness for treating you like this, or lying about you, or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. And then, but they keep making the same mistake. That's someone that kind of like, okay, you're asking for forgiveness. You keep asking for forgiveness for this because I found out that you said this behind my back, or you did this behind my back, or you signed something behind my back, or whatever else. But they keep doing it behind your back. That's an indication that it's time to cut some energy there. And you've addressed it with them. You've talked about it. They kind of like, when they're face to face with you, they like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a change. Or sometimes when you're face to face with them, they're like, nope, I'm not going to change. This is who I am, and I'm not going to change. That's when you kind of feel like, okay, they're making the same mistake, and they're choosing to make the same mistake, and now I have a new choice to make. And that's where it's on you. Like, I can make new choices for not only myself, but my family as well. And what are those new choices? What are those new boundaries? What are those new energy things that you're going to do in that place? Or literally have to cut that toxic person out. That may be some energy that you have to deal with. One of the ones that I will feel like that a lot of people kind of weirdly deal with toxic people is that someone in their household has a substance abuse problem, either alcohol, drugs, medication, whatever it is, and they keep engaging in destructive behaviors. And it's one of those, and it can be a really difficult thing. I know several people that one of their family members is an alcoholic. And I will tell you that the alcoholic, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to cut down. Oh yeah, I'm going to cut down. Oh yeah, I'm cut down. They never really cut down. They're the same energy. They're always like yelling, screaming, or making a big fuss over something, or making like a little bitty problem into like a huge problem. And it's like, well, that's why I have to drink, because there's always this problem going on, or I always have to fix everybody else's stuff. And it's one of those, like, usually the problem of it is their substance abuse and how they deal with that. A lot of people that have substance abuse problem, kind of like the psychic side of that, is that they're trying to control their anger, and it's usually for something not right now. It's something that happened way, way, way in the past, and they're trying to kind of like water it down, or kind of pill it out, kind of like make it numb. And so they're constantly doing that. But I guarantee you, it's kind of like this crazy, like tornado energy of like, they're always on the verge of having a crazy episode, or they're always on the verge of kind of like causing self-destruction for them and everybody else. And this is a person that you may have to kind of cut out of your life at some point. I will also say with a lot of these, you may need to talk to a counselor. This is just some ideas of like things for you to think about. One of the ones that is whenever you're having to deal with them, or kind of have talk with them, or interaction with them, or something like that, that you really start overthinking it. Kind of like, if they say this, I need to say this. They do this, I need to do this. And you're always kind of like, it's almost like playing it on a chessboard. Like, if they move this one, I have to do this. And if they do this, and you're always kind of like having to think about it. And it's one of those, the interactions with family members shouldn't be that complicated. Does that make sense? Like, it shouldn't be that hard or complicated to deal with this. So it's kind of like, ugh, this is really hard. And a lot of times you'll have that kind of like queasy feeling when you're having to deal with them, or kind of like over anxious, kind of like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? Or how are they going to say this? Or feeling like you're always going to be like over attacked. They're going to be like, you say something and they're going to be like, their energy all over you. And you're like, that can be one. I will tell you that you should feel connected to your family members, even if they have opposite views from you. You should have like this, being able to have conversations about all kinds of things. But if you feel like you are always being attacked for your thinking or your ideas, and kind of having to really overthink your interactions or your communication with them, I don't want them to take this the wrong way. I know if I say it this way, they're going to take it the wrong way. That means that that person is usually pretty toxic, kind of like, that's not what we want to deal with. Kind of the next one is kind of when you have a problem with the person, they explode with anger. you say, I called to make a reservation for the restaurant, and they are fully booked at 7 o'clock, so they can't take us until 8:30. And they're like, blah, craziness. And you're like, okay, sorry, we didn't make this plan earlier, and so this is all they have available, and it's always your fault. They're always kind of like, it's your fault, you should have called earlier. Well, we just changed the plans. How could I have called earlier? This can be that yelling, screaming kind of anger. It could be anger issues where they're like physically abusing someone or hitting you, lashing out in some way. It can be kind of like a physical. It could also be like pushing you or shoving you. Any of that is kind of like a super toxic person, and that would be a relationship that you really should be considering, like, this is one I've got to cut out if you possibly can. And I think that's kind of, even if it's a family member that you love or doesn't react to this way all the time, it's one of those, it's something that can be very serious. When you are in a relationship that is very explosive with anger, it can turn from not so bad to violent very, very quickly, or not so bad to violent to like life measures need to be taken kind of thing. So it's one of those, this is something where I would say, like, get a mental health person to talk to. If you feel like you have to leave the relationship, if it's your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever else, like, get some assistance. Look in your area, look in your community for assistance in this area. There are all kinds of homeless shelters that can help. There's different places and different people that can kind of really help you kind of step out in some amazing ways and kind of really bring this to a new healthy situation for you. And I guarantee you, there are toxic people out there, and if it's one of those, if it's really affecting you in a bad way, then it's time for you to make some new choices. It's time for you to make some choices for you that's going to keep you safe and secure. And sometimes that belongs to, your kids. It could be family members. It could be your parents. It could be all kinds of things. I've dealt with a lot of this over the years, and so I often tell people that's kind of the hard part when you have toxic people in your life and they are making bad choices and continue to make bad choices. So that is something important to kind of keep in mind. So let's do some angel cards and let's find out what our angels want us to know about cutting out toxic people from our life. My first one right here is new beginnings. It's time to make some new beginnings. And sometimes the new beginning doesn't start when you move out. It starts making new choices up here. What they're doing is not okay. And when you start to think that, you're already starting those new beginnings. Like, I'm making some new beginnings. This is not where I want to be in my life, or this is not what I want to deal with. So just changing your thinking can change a lot. Intentions. What are your intentions? How are you planning on making changes? How do you plan on making new boundaries or new barriers kind of thing? And when that person crosses it, you've got to have like an ultimatum. When they do this, I'm going to do this. When they do this, I'm walking out. I'm getting out of the situation. Or if they continue using this substance when they are drinking and they get to that erratic stage, I'm walking out. So make sure you're setting some healthy boundaries for you from the beginning. That can be something really important, and setting those intentions right off the bat. Listening. Find other people to talk to. Find other people that are supportive, and that could be going to the police department, going to getting an attorney, going to getting a mental health person, talking to a new counselor, whatever it is. Make sure that you are listening to the advice that they're telling you. They're telling you that advice, hoping that something's going to sit with you. But so many times they talk to people and the person kind of goes in one ear and out the other, because they're like, well, I can't leave my spouse, or I can't leave my husband, I can't leave my wife, I can't do this or whatever else. You have got to make some new choices. And like I said, the new beginnings all start with your thinking. Balance. When things are out of balance, a lot of times when things kind of settle down and you're ready to walk out of this relationship, a lot of times I guarantee you're going to have a lot of changes in your world to make, because them being in your world, that toxic person being in your world, you think this is balanced and it's not. You think this is balanced and it's not. Finding that new balance for you is going to be overwhelming. It is going to be like, oh my gosh, I never knew what true balance was like. I never knew what true peace was like. I never understood why people felt like so calm and cool and relaxed and all that kind of stuff. That's the balance that most of us are looking for. That's the balance that most of us are kind of like, I want that calmness. I want that relax, that anxiety gone. And if you're not having it in your life, it is going to make some amazing changes when you get there. But know that the changes have to move slowly, and it's up to you to make those choices and changes on your own. There are people to support you. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.